So, chapter 9, Byzantium. When Rome falls, we're talking about the Western Roman Empire. And don't forget, what I'm going to be doing here is I want to make sure you guys get the notes taken solidly so that they're helpful. So I'll be telling you, remember Cornell notes where you have the A column or the A section. When you set your notes up like that, that's the A section, that's the B section on the right hand side. I'll be telling you, write this in the A column. If you see something in green like this, or if you see something in black, that's going to be an A section heading probably. I'll make sure that I tell you. I want to make sure you guys are getting the notes taken well. I realize that maybe that's part of the reason you might have been struggling lately, so I'm going to do that for you here. So, the fall of Rome. When the Roman Empire fell, what we're talking about is only the western portion of the Roman Empire. So, in the A column, right, fall of Rome, and then in the B section, right, Western Rome falls. Eastern Rome becomes Byzantine. So the Western Roman Empire falls, the Eastern Roman Empire becomes the Byzantine. It's called the Byzantine because the capital city of Constantinople used to be called Byzantium. Whenever the empire was split by the Emperor Diocletian, the western portion had a capital at Rome, the eastern portion had its capital at Byzantium. Constantine renames it Constantinople. Here on the Ian side of your notebook, flip your notebooks over to the Ian side and duplicate this chart. Regional kingdoms means you had large landowners, aristocrats, wealthy people who just kind of stopped worrying about paying taxes and stopped worrying about following the Roman laws because the emperors, they're getting all stabby, killing each other, and there was no stability in the government, so the local people just started doing it themselves. That's part of it. The local landlords broke up into their own little sort of small kingdoms. But you also had invaders, the Germanic tribes, like the Franks, who already had a way of doing things, and they invaded and took over and set up their own system. So here are some similarities between the two of them. So looking to the Greco-Roman past, what I want to make sure I point out to that is the Roman Empire fell, it was gone, but it was not forgotten. For centuries, people were just like, oh, the good old days, if only we could go back to the Roman Empire. Sort of the way our parents talk about, when I was a kid, that's not how things work. And that's true. You guys sitting in high school is different from when I was in high school. It wasn't that way. In this case, it wasn't that way because the Roman Empire was gone and people kept looking back to it. I wish it was still there. Good old days. So, the classical world. In the A column, right? Classical world. So, here's what survived the fall of Rome. So, you have classical world. Now write in the B section a little heading, classical survival, or you can just write survived the fall. The Church of Rome survived the fall of Rome. Christianity, Roman Catholic Christianity, stayed. The Germanic kingdoms, they were part of the reason the Roman Empire fell. They hung around. And Byzantium, that city and that part of the empire remained. So this is where Roman culture survived, was in Byzantium, because it was the capital of the eastern part of the empire. So Byzantium was the link, and this is what you can still write in the B section. Byzantium was linked to past. Byzantium was a link to the past. But we see some new developments as well, as Islam, Byzantium, and the Slavic people present new challenges. So this is one of the differences that we saw, and actually, so Orthodox Christianity develops with more of a Greek flavor, more of a Greek influence, whereas Roman Catholic Christianity has more of the Roman or Latin influence. And this is going to become important later when we see a split between the Eastern Christian and the Western Christian churches. So you can write that in some of the New World stuff. This is the difference. The word for you to write here, or the phrase, is Great Schism. This still goes with the New World. This is not in the A column yet. Great Schism. S-C-H-I-S-M. The schism here, the Great Schism, is where the Western Church follows more of the Latin, Roman heritage, language, history, things like that. The Eastern, and where a part of the split came from the fact that the Eastern side said we don't need to follow a Pope who was in Rome. This is not the way it should work. And then they had some other arguments that we'll see a little bit later with icons. So, what you can write is in the A column, origins. origins. And then in the B section, right, Constantinople. This is the capital city of the East. It was Byzantium, as I've already said. Constantine renamed it Constantinople, and it becomes one of the most important, if not the most important city in the world. It is a center of trade. All of these trade routes from Western Europe through to the Mediterranean, North Africa, Indian Ocean, India, China, all the Silk Road stuff, that all pretty much goes through Constantinople. Very important city for trade. You don't need to write this down necessarily, but you should recognize that the social structure of the Byzantine Empire looks pretty much like the social structure of almost everywhere else. You have the emperor and his people at the top. You have aristocrats, wealthy people, landowners. Next, then you have the merchants and artisans, people who are making things and selling things. And lastly, you have the peasants who are doing all the work, mostly. So, this guy's name, right off into the side in the A column, Justinian. Justinian is the most important name for you to know. There's one or two others that you'll encounter, like Vladimir the First. You'll see him in your reading and things like that. I'm going to talk about another one. But Justinian is very important. Around the year 530, he is the emperor. And he has some remarkable achievements that we need to make sure you guys remember and know about him. So Justinian and his achievements. First, he was trying to restore unity. He wanted to bring the East and the West back together. He also created a law code. Do you guys remember what the Roman law code was called? Crickets. It's a number. 12 tables. Thank you. The 12 tables was the Roman law, and that was sort of used as a model. Again, they're looking at the good old days. Oh, I wish it was that way again. Hey, you know, the Romans had laws. Let's make some laws. So Justinian assembles the body of civil law. Corpus Iuris Civilis. Next, he tried to reconquer the Western lands, and this is what I mentioned when he was trying to restore unity. The dark pink color that's added on there, you can see the Italian peninsula, a little bit of North Africa, a little bit of Spain. This is, of course, before the Islamic Caliphate spreads across from the Middle East across North Africa up into Spain with the Moors. But he tried reconquering those lands that had been lost. This is an important building, the Hagia Sophia. It's a church that Justinian had built. Massive, beautiful, excellent example. I'd like you to pay attention to the dome that you see around there, because that's going to be important in a little bit whenever we talk about the Kievan Rus, the architectural style. But the Hagia Sophia was an example of the great architectural achievements of Byzantium. He was also, still in the B section under Justinian, the head of the church and the state. Sort of like what we see with the caliphate, only he doesn't have religious power where he says, you must believe this, but it's more of he's the head of the church and he's the guy that kind of is responsible for some of the personnel. Skipping that, watch that on your own on my website. So, some of the, what you can write is on the A column. Write trouble or problems. The Islamic Caliphate comes along in the 600s, and it's immediately knocking on the door of the Byzantines, mainly because Constantinople is a very important city. If you can control that city, you can control the trade, which means you can control the wealth, and they really want that territory. So that's constant pressure until it finally collapses. The Crusades present an interesting trouble because even though they're Christian, what happens is in the East, the Emperor of the East says, hey, Pope, we need help. The Muslims are attacking and taking some of our territory. We need your help. Bring our Christian brothers to come and help us. So that's why the crusade started, was the Pope in Rome sent Christian crusaders to the Holy Land, Middle East, Constantinople, to help out. They didn't do all that great of a job of helping, however, because they got to Constantinople and were like, wow, sweet, you guys have a lot of nice stuff. We'll take it. And so they sacked Constantinople. And that was in 1204. The Crusaders went, the Venetian people in Venice were like, hey, Constantinople's a threat to us, and they have a lot of nice stuff. Why don't you guys go take it all and make them weaker so that Venice can be more powerful? So the Crusaders did that. It didn't work the way the Venetians wanted for another 250 years or so. But then finally, the Ottoman Turks, and that's something you might want to write down, the Ottoman Turks. The constant danger until 1453, when the Ottoman Turks finally conquered Constantinople. And there's a video that I'll have on my website called City of Walls, and it's a video about Constantinople. Pretty sweet. the Ottoman Turks were the finally the ones that destroyed the Byzantine with ending Constantinople. So, A column, society and politics. What was society like? What were the politics like? And this is if we're doing a Persia chart. What would we put for the P? What would we put for the S? We've already seen the R, which is religion, Orthodox Christianity. We've seen the E, which is Constantinople, the center of trade, their Silk Roads, crossroads, and all that. Society and politics. Society is, I showed you the social structure. It's similar to what we've seen before, and especially when you get into politics, it's like China. Emperor at the top, then you have the bureaucrats, the government officials that are helping him out. So the model government that China made is sort of the way the Byzantine looks at the same way. The emperor is considered like God appointed, things like that. Centralized. The emperor has all the power. Constantinople is a massive city, but it's also an international city. There's people from all over the world there, so there's a lot of cultural exchange. There's a lot of preservation of the Greeks and the Romans' ways of doing things, which will become important later. And then the Empress Theodora is a very important lady. Make sure that you look into more on her. Okay, random important stuff. You can just write that in the A column. Random important stuff. These are just some random things that finish out the Byzantine Wars. This is going to be the ending part of Byzantine. And I'm going to talk about the Kievan Rus, who are the foundation for Russia in a second. So, random important stuff. First, this guy has such an awesome name. Basil the Bulgar Slayer. Remember when I said, what direction were the Byzantines trying to spread? Northward. They tried to reunite the West, but they tried to expand their territory by going north. Well, Basil is one of the guys that accomplished that by conquering Bulgaria and defeating the Basils. What you should write down about Basil the Bulgar Slayer is he added Bulgaria to the territory of the Byzantine Empire. Expanded northward. Then this, iconoclasm. Iconoclasm is where there was a kind of, not really a riot, but sort of a explosion of violence against statues and paintings and things of saints and like Jesus and things like that, because they said this is idolatry. These are idols where you're worshiping statues, and this is part of the trouble in the split between East and West, Roman Catholic, Eastern Orthodox. So iconoclasm, you should make sure you know that that was an explosion of violence against icons. Skipping that, watch it on your own. The Kievan Rus. So the Kievan Rus have cultural similarities with the Byzantine. They are influenced by the Byzantine Empire because the Byzantine is sort of right next door. But the Byzantine also had two missionaries, Methodius and Cyril. You'll see them in your text. Make sure you fill that in on your own. Methodius and Cyril spread Orthodox Christianity up into what's now Russia, and they brought with them the Byzantine culture, the Greek heritage, mixed with the Byzantine language and things like that. Cyril gave the Russians their language. The alphabet that Russians use today is called the Cyrillic alphabet because he made up an alphabet for them. That's what they use now. So they have a lot of cultural similarities. I told you to look at the Hagia Sophia Dome. Well, that's what we can see here with the, anybody know what building this is? Kremlin in Russia. The Onion Dome is a Russian, but it's also mixed with, you might see, it kind of looks like something Arabic. So that's all those cultures mixing together. So the decline, the fall of the Byzantine. Mongols don't help, but they don't actually end it. The Mongols are around the 1200s. The Mongols are part of it. This is a video that I'm not going to show. But where we see the decline occur, I already mentioned. Who was it that invaded and defeated Constantinople in 1453? Ottoman Turks. So the Ottoman Turks put the nail in the coffin. But they had a slow, steady decline. They had so many pressures that they had to deal with, enemies on all sides almost, that it was just a slow and steady decline. It wasn't that they got too big for their own weight like the Roman Empire did. It's just they just couldn't maintain it any longer. So it was a long, slow, steady decline.